and welcome to the Elseworlds Exchange. I'm Tiffany, and today I'm joined by Danielle, moderator, best friend, pal. Extraordinaire. There she is. Sal is actually away, guest appearing on another podcast.
Oh,
so he's physically not here
to do it.
So here we are. I figured we'd start the episode with a little Harbor Patrol teaser, considering it's all about world building, the best fictional worlds and universes, plus a little bit of talking about world building as a whole, considering that we just, at least released the first episode of Harbor Patrol, which took place within the DC universe, but we had a world build then. We'll talk a little bit about that. So, yeah. I haven't done the Elseworlds hosting on my own, since the days, Ben and I did one together.
Yeah,
so,
I remember that.
Forgive me, I've done Off the Rack with Sal, obviously, done some other live shows, but we're gonna give this a shot. We're gonna see what's up in terms of world building. I think we have little spoilers there with that intro, splash screen as to what is on the list. But we're going to be talking about a few of our favorites. These aren't our top 10 or the best of or whatever. A few of our favorites, because world building exists in every form of media.
Yes.
In stories, of course, books, novels.
Yep.
You look at things like Game of Thrones, incredible world building.
Yep.
Video games, comics, poetry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It is everywhere. TV, movies, it's all over the place. But why don't we talk a little bit about just some of our favorites, maybe why, and then maybe we'll get into a little bit of what our ideals are for world building, because I think for a lot of people there are specific rules you should follow.
Yes.
And for some people, I don't know if it always fits with the way that they like to tell a story, because I know there are some people who definitely prefer a strong story to relying on the strength of world building.
Yeah.
Where some people feel like they need to have the world built out fully in order to tell their story.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling that we probably have a little bit of overlap, but we also probably have a little bit of each of those on our list. Just knowing you, knowing me, I don't know.
Could be anything.
Who knows? Who knows? I'm gonna let you go first. Give me one off of your list.
Oh, okay.
So what do you
literally
got?
have a list.
Exactly. I should also say, because Sal would say this too, because I totally forgot this.
Yes.
That today's episode is brought to you today by Patreon. Patreon.com/ComicPOP, a place to go to help support ComicPOP. There's all sorts of tiers over there.
Oh,
not
tears.
not tiers, but
Some
tiers. Are on there. And also by Super Chats. If you want to interact with us, the best way to do so is via the Super Chat.
Yeah.
As Sal would say.
We'll answer your stuff and...
Or whatever, I don't know.
Or who knows?
Yeah, let's get into this.
All right. Oh, yeah. So,
lay it on down for me, lady.
Well, I'm just gonna go big.
Okay, go big or go home.
Exactly. I'm gonna start off with Middle Earth.
Middle Earth. Okay.
Lord of the Rings.
That's a fair one.
Yeah.
J.R.R. Tolkien.
Mm-hmm. Master world builder.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as learning how to build a world and needing a really good solid example, I think he's probably one of the best.
Okay. I have an unpopular opinion.
Yeah, no,
I
absolutely.
think
Yeah.
he builds too much of a world.
I agree.
I think it's above and beyond
What you need.
And I think to some people it gives them the wrong idea on how to tell a story at times. That doesn't mean his world isn't amazing and not one of my favorite universes to visit to, in the mindscape and also in the filmscape. But honestly, I think too many people feel like if they don't have every piece of minutia planned out, they can't tell a story.
Yes. I do agree on that. I think he kind of went above and beyond on a lot of things, which maybe an editor, I don't know if he actually did have work with one.
I'm sure he must have.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I don't know that.
But I think he built he had such a grand vision in his mind. You know what I mean? That I think he just had to get it all down on paper. But did he have some really good strong points? Absolutely. Could he have cut down on a bunch of stuff?
Yeah.
Totally. But I think there's a lot of good key concepts with world building that I think he struck on that are, good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he went the extra mile, created his own languages. He certainly hits the tropes of having a political, religious, all that infrastructure built up and it's there and it's present. 100%. Again, he has the languages. He explains everything about like the day-to-day, like where do they get their food? How do they survive? How do things work? The fact that there's magic in the world affects people in their day-to-day.
Yes.
It's also kind of incredible world overall. He has
literally.
yeah, well, and exactly. But he has races there that like have a lot of depth. They aren't one-dimensional.
Yeah.
I mean, at times maybe the dwarves might be, but then I think
But they're like kind of a simple folk when you get down to it.
I guess.
I wouldn't say as simple as like a halfling or a hobbit.
But I find that the hobbits, there's more depth to them based on the hobbits that we follow. If you looked at hobbit culture overall, I'm sure you would find that more hobbits.
Well, he did put more focus on.
Well, I mean, he was obsessed with them.
Oh yeah. To a fault, perhaps.
Too much. No. But like honestly, like there's a lot to it. You have like the variations on the elves. Again, like he didn't have to do it, but he did. But like. I think it allows people like Peter Jackson to take it and distill it. Yeah. It's like he refined that world.
He had a lot of material to work with, which was a good thing. But,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'd not put that on my list because I already knew.
It was going to
be on your list. There was no way that wasn't going to be like, number 1, Middle Earth. Can I go there now?
Absolutely.
No.
But I think it strikes to like the whole, building of like a fantasy. Like that, the tropes of building a fantasy world.
Absolutely. But again, like I all the positives, love it. Just too much detail.
What would have worked is if he had a kind of a bit more of a streamlined story, and then saved like a lot of the extra stuff for like, just supplemental material.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like you could have.
Right.
A lot of that stuff into there.
What I do think is interesting that for a lot of people, though, that is exactly what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they want.
Yep.
They want that kind of, I guess.
It makes it more real for them.
Yeah, it makes it more real for them. They want more. They want as much as possible. They want to know every single detail. I'm not that oriented, apparently, in terms of that. Like, I want some detail. I want certain questions answered, but I don't...
You don't need to know.
I don't need to know what happened to Bill.
But he's such a good horse.
I don't need to know what happened to Bill the Pony. I appreciate it, and it's one of my favorite jokes about Tolkien.
Yeah.
I don't need to know.
Bill could have been a short story in a separate thing.
That I didn't need to know as, like, just reading the story. Yeah. Absolutely. Yep. But there it is, anyway. However, I think he informs, like, Tolkien informs a lot of the way a lot of other later storytellers would then tell their stories. They would take, like, examples from his work, who he was himself inspired.
Yep.
And transform that. Again, I would say like Martin with Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly inspired, definitely taking it from a different perspective, but in terms of that depth, that like richness. Not that I'm super familiar with
no, me neither.
his works, but my general understanding is just, it is very, very detailed.
Yeah.
So, you got to give it up to Tolkien, regardless of how you feel, too much detail or not enough detail. It's got to be up there, and it's why Frodo and Sam are on the cover. Also, I mean, like, it's basically Danielle and I.
Yeah.
There we are. No, not really. Before we move on, let's go and jump into the super chats. Look at me using Sal lingo over here. Mr. Obata, thank you so much, saying, the best world is the boys verse, because compound. The boys verse honestly does have a lot of, like, detail to it. I've read a little bit of it recently thanks to the show and my like desire to know more about it. Sal was not a big fan of the comic. I'm kind of digging on the comic. So like
I guess it's just a taste thing.
I think it is. Like, I don't know, he's not... It's funny, he loves Preacher. He does not care for the, like, hyper-violence in The Boys. Yeah. And I was like, all right, I get what is being done here.
Right.
And I understand why it's there, so I'm kind of okay with it.
Okay.
He's also a Tarantino fan, so I'm just like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Because, like, Tarantino likes to put in that high, ridiculously over-the-top violence, that movie violence and celebration of films, in a sense. Yeah. And I'm like, that's kind of what this is. Like, that hyper, like, commentary on, like, the violence within each of us.
Okay.
Possibly. But still... Like, I think The Boys is a good example, and thank you for your super chat. So here's the other issue. Sal's pretty good at reading everybody's names, and I'm not, so apologies. William Gazka saying, you gotta be kidding me, the old bonus round crew. That's right. here we are.
What are we playing today?
Conversations. I can't stay much. I love ComicPOP. Have a great day. Well, thank you so much for popping in.
Yeah.
Popping in.
Popping
in. Ooh. I'm going to just end the stream now. Thank you for your support and your super chat. Lewis Southard needs to see some different hosts for a change. Well, thank you. The Venture Brothers universe lore is great in my opinion, given the airtight continuity and the solid alternative history. I didn't even think about putting that on the list. I honestly inevitably kind of fell off of the Venture Brothers bandwagon simply because of the time in between. There was a big gap. Right? In between the seasons. Before what I remember of it, those guys really paid attention to their continuity. They really paid attention to not only homages to other universes, but also just, developing their own. So I think that's a great pull there. So excellent. And thank you so much for your super chat. Dr. Mad, this is after your time, but the lore of the Bionicle toy line is one of the most unique fictional worlds I've ever seen. I don't know if it's after my time because I'm very aware
I remember
of
them.
that. Well, I don't know it that well, but I'll explain why. It was far beyond what you would have expected from a line of buildable action figures. Prior to knowing Sal, I dated a young man who was quite into the Bionicle lore, so I'm very aware of how much lore they put into that, and that fascinated me to some degree, the idea of doing that, and honestly is one of those instances where it's appearances can be deceiving, where it's just it's just a toy line, they're just trying to sell whatever,
right.
But somebody clearly cared about it, so kind of cool. Kind of cool. I wonder, I'm sure there are lots of information, articles, documentaries out there or whatever about which came first. Did they have the toys first and then someone developed the lore, or did the lore come first and they developed the toys? I don't know.
Kind of like He-Man.
Right. He-Man. Adam Asamoah says, sees Danielle on Elseworlds without context. Nani? Exactly. For those who are just joining us right now, Sal's actually over recording another podcast, so he had to go and do that. But here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are filling in.
Happy to fill in.
Filling in. Robert Kozub saying, it's got to be Spelljammer Dungeons and Dragons setting. Ooh. Oh, hey. There isn't a better science fantasy universe. Yeah, certainly D&D, at some point I hope we kind of touch on that just in general. The fact that D&D is such an interesting example of world building, because here is Dungeons and Dragons coming out being here's our world, here's blah blah blah, classes, magic, systems, gods, all this other stuff, towns, history, lore. Then your players come in and create a world with you.
Yeah.
So
run with it.
Yeah, it's such an interesting example of an interactive world building, where it's just we have all of this and we can follow it and we might follow it, but we're gonna make something completely different.
Yeah,
and
we often do.
Yeah, and it's cooperative. It's not just one individual telling you it.
Yep.
It's hopefully. I guess it depends on your style of gaming. Your DM or GM is reacting to what it is you guys, what the players are doing in order to craft that world. So great example. And then Luke's 681 saying, bit of a deep cut, but Lego's Bionicle franchise had an amazing world and story behind it. It was the first world that I got really immersed in as a kid. It seems like it was one of those instances where they trusted kids to be able to hang on to an immersive world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which is nice for them to,
Yeah, they weren't afraid that kids would not understand it and would not be able to embrace that instead of having basically just really shallow world building, which we've seen before.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna go with one that is pretty obvious that I think this is incredible world building. Avatar: The Last Airbender. I think Avatar: The Last Airbender is probably the best example on my list of world building that I really, really love. I think not only in terms of general lore, the fact that they drop us in the middle of a large story, they make sure to explain to us why it's important, they make sure to explain to us what happened to make this reality happen. We have average individuals like ourselves who are affected by these above and beyond like average individuals who have powers essentially, and how they affect the world in a big bad way. The actual crafting of animals, of civilizations, of politics, I think is absolutely incredible. I know for some people the races of the Airbender universe can be a little shallow for them. It bothers people apparently that the waterbending tribes are all like Eskimos.
Really?
And I was like, but there's so few of them. And to be fair, not all waterbenders are, because then you have like the swamp waterbenders.
Right, yeah.
Now, they're not their own nation necessarily, but there are others.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I think there's just so few of them. I think seeing the way a lot of the Fire Nation and the Earthbending Kingdom have different beliefs is a really great example of excellent world building. It's also probably not my number one world for wanting to live in. I'd love to live in Lord of the Rings, sure, whatever. I'm probably going to die of some horrific disease. So I think I'd rather live in Avatar: The Last Airbender, personally. Yeah, it's just, I've never experienced anything like the world that they crafted. That's not to say that other things haven't come before that are similar, that I'm probably just not aware of. But, like, it was like so familiar, yet something so different.
Yeah.
You know, like they clearly gained inspiration from the real world, from real history, and just took it and morphed it and examined the cause and effect that would happen by introducing magic, basically.
Yeah. Yep.
It's not really magic, but it's magic.
But it is magic.
Into the world.
Yeah. Which I think, to me, that makes, if you're gonna build a world that has like some sort of magic base or science base, to me, like, the more like valid, I'm gonna put valid in quotes. Valid and logical you kind of put into it, the more you can believe it.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, like, you have to make it in which things, and like by things I mean like politics, the way the world works, the way people function day to day, change when you introduce it. Even if it's been there forever, you have to like consider that. You have to consider the fact that, like, if you have somebody who can make fire out of their hands, things are going to work a little differently. And they did. They changed the way that they would power ships. They changed the way that they would wage war.
Yeah.
You know, you look at the Earthbenders, it changes the way in which they farm, in which they mine, in which they do their day-to-day things, as well as, obviously, air and waterbenders, or airbenders, I'm sure, if any of them were still alive.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, too many times you see people being like, it's like our world, except everybody, you know, is invisible. And except everybody is whatever. And it's like, then that's not our world.
No.
Everything would be completely different. Yeah. If everybody was able to breathe fire, our world would be very different.
Yes.
So you can't necessarily say that. You have to address that. And I think that's so important when you're dealing with that kind of thing. Now, if it's one of those instances where, like, in a comic I'd read recently called Magic Order, it was a miniseries by Mark Miller, there's magic in the world. Everyone doesn't know about it.
Okay.
And so I think that's fair. Day-to-day goes, like, everyone else's lives go on.
Yeah.
Occasionally they're touched by whatever is happening, but for the most part, you're fine.
Yeah, you're completely kind of like ignorant to it.
But if you're gonna have it be so ingrained, you have to address that fact. Yeah. The fact that they created hybrid animals, it's such an obvious concept, but so well done.
It makes it unique. It makes it its own.
Yeah, and they follow their own rules too, which I think is such an important
huge.
Part of that.
Yes.
Living in an amazing fictional world, you need it to follow its own rules to some degree.
Because it's like it kind of becomes, you know, when you're playing pretend as a kid, and I'm like, I'm gonna blast you with lasers, and you're like, well, I've got this super awesome shield that I put. Like, there's got to be rules, like, otherwise it's too much.
Exactly. Yeah. Where did you get that? Were you gifted that by the government? Was there some sort of like crazy like, you know, secret program that you were a part of? No, you just wanted that. I need a reason.
Yeah.
And again, I don't need every minute detail about it. For me personally, I don't need to know like the name of every scientist who worked on the program that created the thing and what happened to them in their home life, unless it has some like validity or like impact on the main story to some degree. Yeah. Granted, I will put out this caveat. I don't like it when things are put into a world just because it needs to be there. Which is like really contradicts what I just said about having too much detail. But like, I need this to be there right now, so now it's there.
Right.
Like, but why?
Yeah.
So
like the Sherlock Holmes trip up. Of,
right.
Oh, by the way, you didn't notice this random thing.
So Avatar: The Last Airbender, we could talk about that forever. That's a thing that we've always wanted to talk about here, so I won't get too far into it because a lot of it also has to do with character development, and that's a whole nother thing. But to be fair, I think some of the best character development I've ever seen happens in that show.
Yeah.
So it's like it's just like the 1-2 punch of awesome for me. So all right, I'm gonna dive back into the super chats before we move on. Robert Core says weird one about gargoyles. Dude, yes.
Yep.
Yes. That was an honorary mention on my list. I think the world of gargoyles is incredible. I am a big fan. I am a big fan.
I didn't catch it too much.
No, I love
yeah,
that show. It was on in like repeats, so awesome times had by all. Especially me. Again, an example of a world in which they're just like, "Hello, child, strap in."
Yeah, you're just getting thrown in.
Yeah, it is like, yes. Are there like episodes that here's the episode? Sure, it is a continuity heavy show from beginning to end. It's just you better be following along with the story because we're gonna reference stuff.
Yeah,
which I'm like, that's incredible. But the world itself, you know, basing it in not only like old mythology, in old stories, like pulling in like Shakespearean like stories, making it real as we've seen in other stories, of course. Just so incredible to do that, but also make it work because of its own rules. Yeah. Where it's just like, oh no, it exists and here's why, and that's fine. And there is magic in the world, and like for the most part it's hidden away. Yeah. And that's why it's okay. But when you compare to where the gargoyles are in present time, where there's few of them and the world doesn't really react to them until the very end, to in the past when they worked hand in hand, their lives were very different. Yes. And human lives were very different because they had these guardians, cause and effect. Yep. So very cool. So thank you for that, and thank you for your super chat. Rusky9110, thank you so much for your super chat saying, what's your favorite post-apocalyptic world?
Oh, I got a good one for that.
Okay, I personally prefer the ones where everyone is super stoked for the world to end. That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, I'm gonna have Danielle wait to say hers because if that's like your like
my
next one on your
well,
list.
I mean, it could be. It's on the list. It's not necessarily next.
All right.
List, but,
well, if you want to go into it, then
yeah. Okay.
What is it?
Mad Max.
Yeah, Mad Max. Okay. So in terms of Mad Max, there's really two different versions of Mad Max. There's the old Mad Max, and then there's the new Mad Max. And the new Mad Max is a little crazier and wilder and stuff like that. Yeah. It is an incredible post-apocalyptic world.
Yes. I was gonna use Beyond Thunderdome specifically. Yeah. Because it's. I love it so much because, especially for like dystopian stuff and like post-apocalyptic, is just the concept of like taking everything that we've built that we know and just throwing it out the window, and it's like survive, you know what I mean? And like just the concept. I was reading up on like Bartertown, and I kind of wish they showed this a little bit more in the movie, but I mean, I guess it might have been. It probably would have killed the pace, but like apparently there was like a dentist. Which I can't even imagine what that
I'm not going to
like.
that.
But like that Bartertown itself was like a fully populated, self-surviving town. It was a city, you know, and just like so these people, just out of nothing, just rebuilt this thing and like ran the city on methane and just dealt with trading, like went back to like all these old roots and like just this whole new culture and world was. Basically created out of the need to like survive.
All right, I can see that. I think where it falls apart for me is the second half of that
film.
Oh,
yeah, we could just... If it just ended, like...
Yeah.
But right before you left.
Even in terms of the new Mad Max, I think they, like, the world building in that is fantastic. Yes. Honestly, like, again, following its own rules. Not a lot of, like, Tolkien-level depth necessarily. Yeah. But again, an example of where a good story... doesn't need to rely on that. That's not to say the Lord of the Rings isn't a good story. Yeah. It's just that's an example of like a little bit of everything. Yep. And just a lot of detail.
I think a good world is built too on like if you can, and to bring it back real quick to like Avatar, is if you can drop right into the middle of something. Yeah. And it still works.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's a good strong world.
Absolutely. I guess my favorite dystopian post-apocalyptic sort of world. I'm gonna. I hate to be very specific here because there's too many incarnations of this, and like the AD people are gonna get really mad at me. But Dread, the movie.
Yes. Oh my god.
The movie. I think that does an impeccable job of creating a world I never want to go to.
No.
Like I never want to be in the world of Dread. Yeah. just little things that they drop in, where it's just you've already figured out the story that goes, behind it. At the very beginning, kills the guy.
Yep.
There's whatever's coming to basically take him away and grind him up into whatever they need.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is so messed up. And I didn't have to learn all about it. I didn't need a ride along character to be like, what is that? I don't understand. Tell me more about it. I got everything I needed to know in the way it's described.
Just looking at Peachtree. You know how these people live.
Yep.
Day to day.
Yep.
This is it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It's just so well put together. It blows my mind. And now I want to watch it.
Yeah.
Let's jump back into Super Chats really quickly. Let's see. Sam Anderson saying a very Canadian pick. Reboot. Also, New She-Ra. New She-Ra I haven't caught too much on, but my understanding is that there's a lot more to this than the old one, which was simply really based off of action figures and a desire to make a female counterpart.
Yeah, too.
Yeah. But Reboot. Oh, what a good pick.
That is.
What a good pick. That show has way more lore and way more world building than you would ever imagine it could.
Yeah.
At times, I think there are it probably could use a little more depth to it in some degree, because I think the showrunners were sometimes trying to make sure they played to children, and maybe were a little too afraid to drive it too far home. Now, that said, the later season where it gets all bizarre and Enzo's older and it's just
that stuff got dark.
It did get dark, and it's just from first season to there, it's like, what the hell happened here? But at that point, I think they got comfortable.
Yeah.
So good choice, Sam, and thank you for your super chat. Oh my goodness. Pandemonium 93 saying the Lovecraft mythos moist, just like the channel. Yeah, moist in every way, shape, and form in terms of Lovecraft. A lot to the Lovecraft universe building, in ways where it's just it's not all just tentacle beasts.
No.
It's not all Cthulhu.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fish stuff as well.
Yeah, he had a very especially with Dagoth and all that stuff was very seaside.
Yeah, a lot of interest in the look of certain things, in barnacles, in elder gods, the idea of the unfeeling god, the idea that if there were gods, we would not be able to conceive of what they wanted.
Yes,
because they're so not us.
Yeah,
and I was like, what an interesting idea. Also, how the hell can you write for that? But so much to those worlds, the Lovecraft worlds, and it is too bad that he never got to see the popularity that exists now. If only he knew.
Yeah, but it is cool that people have taken kind of not over, I should say, but taken that world and that universe and kind of made their own.
To some degree, they have actually taken over, because my understanding is if you write within that world, oftentimes that just becomes part of the mythos, that becomes part of the lore and the continuity.
I wonder if at this point there's more, other authors
writing Lovecraft.
Yeah, versus him.
I don't know.
That's interesting.
I don't know. Asif Saeed, thank you so much for just helping us out there with the super chat. Yeah. Before we keep going with super chats, I'm going to jump back in and
what do you got?
Give another one of mine. I don't know where to go here. Let's talk about, because I think this is going to come up a lot. We could go on and on and on and on about anime world building.
Yes.
It's a totally different type of world building. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes, you can have the kind of depth you'd find in a long, ongoing series of novels because of how long a series can go.
Yeah.
But usually, it's very coherent because of the fact that most people stay on for the whole series.
Yeah.
There are also anime movies and other such things. I am going to touch on just 2 today. That's not to say that anyone else aren't, I understand that the One Piece world is incredible. Mm-hmm. I don't know enough about that to talk about it.
Me neither.
So instead, I'm going to talk about one that's probably lesser known, but I'm just going to mention it briefly. Mushishi. The world of Mushishi, I think, is an incredible world of realism meets, hi, let's introduce this bizarre concept that touches the lives of people and they have to react accordingly. It is a very quiet, slow-paced anime that tends to be very episodic, and yet the world that it exists in it has such a cohesion that, I don't necessarily want to go there.
Right.
But it is a beautiful, beautiful world in which... the idea is there are these basically invisible to the eye, like organisms that affect people at times, creating what could be conceived of as like mystical or supernatural happenings. Whether or not they are mystical or supernatural or not is one thing.
Interesting.
But there is a gentleman who can see them and deals with them a lot, and he goes from place to place dealing with them.
Okay. Almost like an exorcist. It kind of,
Yeah, in a way.
Yeah.
But just a really cool world of like questionable time, because it's like has certainly elements of like older like Japan there, but like his garb is a little more modern. It's interesting, very interesting. I didn't want to go too into depth in that one, but I wanted to mention it. The one
cool.
I will go into depth on, I know you can speak of as well. It's Cowboy Bebop.
Oh, yeah.
I think Cowboy Bebop is one of the most incredibly lived-in universes I've ever seen. It's very clearly
Quite down literally to the look of it.
the look into it, absolutely. It seems like an actual potentially like alternate future for humanity. The idea of like these space truckers, basically.
Yeah. Yep.
The idea of having space travel and yet at the same time not being as widespread as, say, Star Trek. You know what I mean? Like just very like, whoop, here we are in this universe.
Because there's still planets where people are just, living just on the planet. Just,
Oh, absolutely. The rules of Cowboy Bebop, I think, like they adhere to it. They adhere to everything. It's like you got ships, you need fuel, you got to eat. How are you going to eat? We're going to be bounty hunters. It's that like Old West meets trucker meets space sort of feel to it. It's just like such an incredible place to maybe be. Depends on what part of it you're in.
It's got like a great limitedlessness to it too. You know what I mean? Because like you got space, you got spaceships. It doesn't necessarily have to be in like our solar system. You could do anything.
Oh,
out there,
absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And you get to see a lot of like the different like economics. You see the low of the low and the high of the high. There are not set rules as to who's a good person and who's a bad person.
Yeah. Which is very realistic. Because it's not always black and white like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like the concept of like you get into some of the political nature of it, but not too much of it. It's more or less the like, how am I going to survive? How am I going to get through this? That sensation of that being almost the only way, and yet very clearly there are other ways to make a living in this universe that we don't even really explore. We just know that they're there. And that like a lot of history has occurred between like the Earth that we know and the Earth that there is now, and we get hints at it, and you can really fill in everything as you go. So,
which is perfect.
Yeah, I gotta Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah.
It's just such a good.
The music is awesome.
Well, yeah, that is and that's a big part of world building to some degree. The Silver Cricket, thank you for helping us out with the super chat. Saying the world of One Piece feels like it would be fun, right? High flying pirate adventure.
Yeah, bright.
Yeah,
happy, crazy.
Exactly. Tevye Smolka, thanks for your super chat saying My Hero Academia and Greg Weisman's Young Justice. Yeah. I've watched a little bit of My Hero Academia. I think there's some decent world building going on there. I haven't delved enough into it to say like, yes, I see all the following like hits. That being said, also a world I don't want to live in.
Okay.
I don't want to live in My Hero Academia. It's too dangerous.
Yeah.
It's just too dangerous. I can't. No. Young Justice, maybe. I might. But, like, I'll live in another place where nothing's happening.
Yeah, you could, like, just see it and go, like, oh, that happened.
Oh, I saw it on the old YouTubes there. Neat.
Cool.
Good pulls. Thank you. Silver Cricket, thank you again. Saying Midland from Berserk is fascinating. I'd never want to set foot there. I really don't know much about Berserk.
I've heard it's insane.
Yeah.
So, like, well, just from you guys commenting and stuff on it, like, it seems like it's...
There's something to be said, though, for people who create worlds and universes where you never want to go. It's that well conceived that you'd never want to be there.
Yep.
Which transitions us actually into the next super chat by Robert Core saying, world I love but never want to live in, Dead Space.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I don't want to be there.
Yep.
Never, ever, ever. Nope.
Yeah.
No. It's just, I don't want to exist where there's the possibility of those kind of, like, monstrous entities, that feeling of isolation in space, which is funny because you just talked about Cowboy Bebop and their space travel there. It doesn't feel quite as isolated.
No.
That the like Isaac Dead Space lore, it's too. It's like Alien, which again another great world.
Yeah.
But like,
do I want to live there?
Not at all. No. Not at all. All right, what else do you have?
Well, I got. Well, we can since we just kind of hit on video games a little bit. I wanted to mention Hyrule.
Okay.
Legend.
I was like, I feel like that's gonna be on there.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'll do like Hyrule and also throw in like Mario too to kind of like, kind of sort of put them together. But like, not that I would say Legend of Zelda is like way more, involved and like details and stuff like that. Than, like the Mario universe, which really only kind of gets sort of touched in with like Mario RPG. If any of you guys played that, but that one was kind of almost like fan fiction-y, where it's like, hey, let's take this kind of small thing. And kind of build up on it and like add new characters and da-da-da. So I don't know if it's necessarily canon.
Right.
Anyway, but mostly on Zelda is like just the sheer lore and kind of depth and the places and like just the atmosphere and like
I mean, I think that the issue I have with the Mario version is that that was created after the fact.
Yes.
Like, they created reasds to have these things later on. I'm sure there was some thought about it early on, but some of it was just, and this happens, and get over it.
Yep.
At least with Legend of Zelda, I think they developed the idea of having a story, and, like, the creator behind it had a little bit more desire to tell a story.
Yeah.
And a little more inspiration, and I think we've seen a lot of that fully realized. In Breath of the Wild, not that there haven't been other ones prior to that told like these incredible encompassing worlds.
Yeah.
But that world in particular, being that it was open world, had to be so tight.
Oh yeah.
For me in that game in particular, there were a lot of like little nuanced things that I'm like, who thinks to do this? They did. I was literally like going through it the other day, and those like whiz robes, the little fire guys.
Yeah.
There were 2 of them, and they're dancing on top of the remains of a burned home.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's a little touch.
Yeah.
I didn't ask for that, but it's perfect. But go ahead about.
Oh yeah. That's kind of like almost a great example too of like post-apocalyptic in a way, but like instead of everything just being horrible,
it's nice.
It's like kind of nature's kind of taken over. People have moved on and like survived, but in like a different way with their own kind of rules, and it's less cutthroat. I mean, there's still I would have to assume there's still cutthroat cultures in Hyrule and stuff like that, but like they kind of just have 2 different feels to them. Right. But just like, I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I feel like, I mean, except for the whole like questioning of timelines and
that's kind of tricky
in terms of Zelda. The idea, at least in Breath of the Wild, of like making it so that like Ganon's had many forms and like
that's because
various
of, like,
incarnations and rebirth and stuff like that. That's a really great way to retcon your world building.
Yep.
Because it's almost as though they'd never anticipated everything to be as connected as it was, and they hadn't committed to the Final Fantasy world building and like rebooting each franchise kind of or like each game, like changing it up so that each world was different, except when they started making sequels, and then that threw that right out the window. But yeah, I mean, you can't ignore the like the creativity and the details that went into even some of the early Zelda games. And that attention to detail between games, even if at the time they weren't connected.
Yes. Yep. Like, and that world in itself is, because if you look at like each Zelda game, they're all different. You know what I mean? They have like, they all feature Link, you know, you're typically rescuing Zelda, you're typically beating some form of Ganon. But they all like kind of have their own little nuances. So they're almost like, it is almost like a kind of a repeat, but it's like a rehashing each time, but it's like, but it's different. You know, which was really, really cool.
I always thought, not that I played it, I really only like know about it mostly from you. For some reason, I was always attracted to the world of Majora's Mask, because talk about a game where you feel completely alone, and yet you're surrounded by NPCs, but NPCs who just don't get it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of great lore that goes onto there. That was the first time I think I was ever started to understand the different cultures that were a part of that world.
That's where they really started fleshing it out.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Which, again, at that point was a point where they're probably like, we want to develop some of this a little bit more so.
Yeah. Like, what's outside the castle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Is it just, you know, is it just the, the people of Hyrule? Are there other people? Are there other non-pointy-eared elven people?
Yeah. Maybe we should expand a little.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And which was, that was so great about the 64 games was that, you kind of took this sort of a little bit more like conformed bubble and then just, it was huge.
Right.
Huge. And you're still seeing the stuff that they made in Breath of the Wild.
Oh, yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah,
you know? And it makes it a little more cohesive. Those are more cohesive together.
I agree. I guess in terms of video games as well, I'm not going to go into depth on this one, but I just want to give a shout out to the Elder Scrolls games.
Yes. Good call.
Again, the open world nature does help out, but that might be another example as well, though, of too much lore. A little too much lore at times, but the world building is really on point.
Yeah.
In terms of political, in terms of people reacting to magic, to monsters, to dragons, to all of that.
Yeah.
You got to give it up for them. Absolutely. I'm going to jump into the super chat before we move on. Let's see. Luke S681 saying, you're right about someone at Bionicle caring a lot. Its themes are subtly based on the creator's experiences with a brain tumor. Whoa! Wow. That's incredible.
Whoa.
That is incredible. You'll notice that a lot, too, in terms of, world building, where when people have a lot of passion for it, oftentimes it comes from their own life experiences.
Yeah.
I know a lot of, the original reason that Legend of Zelda is the way it is because of the creator's desire or, to capture his youth.
Yeah.
Growing up in, the fields and other such things. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Makes
sense. It's a writer convention, of writing what you know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Sam Anderson helping us out saying, Roger Rabbit is fully realized and coherent from the start. It definitely is. And that's a really interesting example because it's it takes something it takes cartoons. It not only takes cartoons that you understand the world of cartoons in general. It literally takes cartoons that combines them with cartoons you aren't familiar with because they've just created them.
But you get it.
Yeah. And then puts them into the real world. And it forces that real world to react to them. Things are different because cartoons are real. Yeah. We don't just pretend every day goes by just as normal and we don't care and things aren't adjusted or addressed. No. We absolutely we have to have law enforcement that deals with tomb crimes.
Specifically with that.
That's what the movie's based off of.
There's prejudice between,
Exactly. That's a really good poll, and I know Sal would definitely appreciate that as a big Roger Rabbit fan. Gustav, thank you so much for your super chat saying, hi, Tiff and Danielle, or Danny. I would weirdly want to live in the Black Sad universe. Not a furry. I don't know if you guys have read those books. They're great. I'm aware of them. We both are. Yeah. Thanks to our friend and a Harbor Patrolsman. I said former because of the show. We already shot it.
Yeah, so it's kind of former to us, but it's not.
We already shot that, but we're gonna be shooting more at some point. I hope. Harbor Patrolsman Peter really is well versed in the Black Sad universe. Just loved the world that he built. Haven't read them myself, but my understanding is great love and craftsmanship went into those worlds. So, and also I think they're making a show.
Really? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard that the American voice acting is not so great. Oh. Which is sad. I mean, it is a European comic. Okay. And so the hope is for Europeans who are so familiar with it that they get better voice actors for that. So, I mean, I'll probably still check it out. Robert Core, thank you so much for your super chat there saying, which comic book future is your favorite world? Okay, comic book future. Well, it's not Age of Apocalypse, I'll tell you that right now. Crap. Comic book future.
What are some?
There's Age of Apocalypse, there's Kingdom Come. That's not a good one. There are a lot of them. I'm trying to come up with any that seem good. Most of the time in comics, at least that I'm like coming up with on the top of my head, we go to the future because it's bad.
Right. Yeah.
And we don't
want it to be that way, so
we go back and we fix it.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
No, we don't want those futures.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm going to cheat and say Sailor Moon because there's technically future in that.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a cheat. If I had to pick a main two, yeah, I'm not picking Age of Empires. I mean, I'm a person. I'm a human. Maybe I'll be okay. Maybe I'm not a mutant. Maybe I'll be okay. I don't know. Yeah, that's dangerous.
That's a good question.
Future's End? No! Batman Beyond, that's a great choice.
Yeah?
I'm going Batman Beyond it if I had to pick a big two version. You got clubs, you got crime still, it's, above and beyond. But there's still a Batman, so hopefully he'll take care of it.
Okay, yeah. It's a future, but it's not like, terrible.
Not only is there a Batman, Terry McGinnis, but there's also Bruce Wayne kind of manning everything.
Okay.
And Ace the Bat Hound, still alive. Or another version of it. Adam Esmo helping us out again. Thank you so much. Saying, since we're on video games, how about the Sonic the Hedgehog universe? From saving animals to fighting a being who that lives in the past, present, and future. Sonic is truly a world builder. It is true. And then there was honestly animated series that evolved that. There was the first one that was very standard, here's what's going on, blah blah blah. Then there was a second series that was okay, what if we made a crazy lore behind Sonic the Hedgehog that involved a freedom force fighting against Robotnik.
Whoa,
and they took it to the next level.
Yeah.
I was thinking about putting that on the list just because I know Ethan would appreciate that because he's a big Sonic the Hedgehog fan as well.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm gonna hold off on that. But yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog, there's a lot more lore to that than you expect.
Yeah,
Definitely. And Gustav helping us out again, saying also Cyberpunk 2077. I love the aesthetic. I'm loving the look of that game, and I can't wait to get my hands on it and give it a shot. Absolutely. Just looking forward.
Yeah.
All right, what else you got?
Popping off of Cyberpunk, I was thinking Ghost in the Shell. Now, I don't know if I would necessarily want to live in that universe, but I like the idea of instead of how Dread went and you kind of see technology and human nature and where it goes to in that future. I kind of like this one where it's okay, we've sort of paired with technology so much that now we're kind of a part of it. We are technology.
Right. Again, another good example of just little things that they drop in there where it's just here's a little thing. I don't need to explain it to you 100%. Definitely has a lot of Blade Runner in it right there and then. So you got to mention that because Blade Runner is a spectacular world that's it's going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And I think Ghost in the Shell follows with that. Just of course changing the method to that robotic component.
Yeah.
Where it's I didn't even know I was a robot to it's cool. People have implants. There's different levels, of your integration.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
That's an interesting feature of the...
And yet at the same time, people still have standard day-to-day jobs. And they, while those other things are going on, their lives are just often made easier by technology.
Yep.
So yeah, cool world. Yeah. Good choice.
Thank
Good choice.
You.
Speaking of video games, which I don't understand how I didn't jump on when you mentioned video games before, BioShock.
Oh man.
Now, when I say BioShock, we can say there are many worlds to BioShock.
Yes.
If you subscribe to the ending of BioShock Infinite, which to this day, I don't know how I feel about that. But BioShock, I think, is a really good drop you in the middle of things, but totally through story and what you see in front of you, you understand what happened.
Yeah.
You understand how we got to this point, which for me is a really, I love that kind of world building. I don't mind starting fresh. I don't mind, oh, here's something that's going on, oh, it all went to hell. Yeah. I do kind of love the, being dropped into the middle of it and let the world explain it.
Yep.
When you see the bar all busted up and you see the New Year's decorations left, you've already started putting it together in your head without anyone having to say anything.
Yeah.
The look and feel of that world, even though in the back of your mind the time period based on like, it's like, it's this time period. You're in an airplane, whatever. And then you go down to this like, Art Deco, like 1920s to 40s, like feeling location, listening to all of the different like little like cassette things you pick up, the recordings, if you will, that's the right word. Just helps to fill in a lot of that stuff while also like at times explaining what you're seeing, but at times also putting you like at unease. The like fact that it's just like here's how we explain the how, they explain the why, they explain the like how life changes with a weird element being the big daddies and the little sisters, the plasmids themselves, like just so much went into that. And I'll even say, even for Infinite, so much went into that as well. I mean, thinking like, I'm just getting a third BioShock, and then they completely flipped the script. I do prefer the world building in the first BioShock.
I agree.
I think the third BioShock in Infinite, like, it is incredible. It is beautiful looking. I adore the addition of songs that we're aware of done in different ways that suit the story and suit that world. I just feel like the like mystery unfolding in the first BioShock is better crafted in terms of the look of the world than in the second or in the third one, because the second one really takes place in the same place in Rapture. But I think Rapture is just like a universe. Talk about a place I don't want to go.
No.
At no period in its history, I don't want to be there. I don't want to be there when it was good. I don't want to be there when it was bad. I don't want to be there in the sequel.
Nope.
I don't want to be there. And yet I desperately want to play it. It's also so interesting too, because like in terms of like games, you as the player have the opportunity to view the world in ways they may not have anticipated. They allow you to explore as much of it as you want.
Yes.
And so things might be missed. And I think that speaks highly of a world that I A, want to explore, and B, even if I miss things, you still got the point across.
Yes.
But like little gems
are
so welcome.
I do. I know we talked about this before, like when they like kind of reward you for
exploration. Yeah, I mean, we see a lot of that too in, let's say, Portal.
Yep. Definitely.
Which I actually didn't even put on my list, which I'm mad at myself about. Kind of mad at myself about that I didn't put Portal on my list, but it's on my list now.
Yeah.
Because Portal itself, I think, is incredible world building, especially Portal 2.
Yes.
When you get down into the like older, Aperture labs section, like Aperture is just such a simplistic. In the first game, it is a minimalistic world build, in my opinion. But done the right way.
Yes.
Done in all the right ways, where you question so much what's going on intentionally.
Yes.
Intentionally done. So good.
Yeah,
so
because they kind of feed you the stuff very slowly, to the point where you're like, okay, something's really up.
Yeah.
Okay, something's really up.
Yeah.
And then
And an instance of like that, sometimes like there are points where it's like, we want you to see this and we'll lead you to see the behind the scenes. And sometimes you get to go and do that on your own. And if you do, it just adds to that that world. So good. Okay.
And I think those two, just real quick, are awesome. Because, like, when you think of world building, you think of, like, everything outside. You think of, like, countries and like, this whole thing. But, like, a world could just be a contained area. So, like, Rapture and, like, Portal, it's like the facility is just this...
Yeah, you have only so
like
much room.
apertures, that's it.
Yeah.
And it works, and it still works. So
yeah, absolutely. All right, what else you got? Because I know we're getting near the end here, so.
All right, let me see what I got.
But while you're looking at that, I'm going to go into the super chats really quickly and saying, Adam Grove saying, just got here. Did you say Saga yet? I didn't. And Chris L. I'm going to guess it's an L because the Chris is lowercase. Or it could be a 1, too. How about Conan Exiles? Appreciate all ComicPOP things. Well, thank you so much for saying that. Yeah, the world of Conan, Hyboria, incredible.
Yep.
They have so much to pull from in all the versions that Conan has been in, whether it be, stories, movies, games, comics.
Yep.
An incredible world. Absolutely incredible world. So good pull there. Good pull. Get it.
Let's see. I have...
You have one on there I definitely see that I'm like we could talk about together. 100%. It's a comic.
Sandman.
Yeah. We might as well transition into some comics because I definitely have a couple, Saga being on there.
Perfect.
But let's chat about Sandman.
This-
Sandman, along with another book on my list, is a really cool example of creating a world within the confines of superheroes.
yes.
Because while Neil Gaiman definitely made his own thing going on there, it has to exist in a world of DC.
Yes.
And I think that's really cool
Yep.
because that world was already created, and then he came in and was like, okay, but this too.
Yeah. and with him too is like, I know I was talking about, you know, how to, you know, kind of make things more believable and realistic by keeping things like, you know, kind of valid and logical. But with Sandman, the illogical and the fantastical is better. Like, you want it, because like dreaming, you want it, that's the place where you can go just balls to the wall, you know, crazy.
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
Like, I've got two heads, and then, you know, like, it works, and you accept it.
Yeah, but it also does follow its own rules.
Oh, yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Morpheus exists within the confines of certain rules, which are explored, of course.
Sometimes he bends them.
Right, well, he certainly does,
But-
but it's not that it's not addressed.
Yes.
You know, like, there are...
Oh, yeah, he pays for
He
a lot of
definitely
stuff he
does,
thinks,
but, like, a lot of the book itself is about those rules. A lot of the story as a whole is about the rules, not just about, like, you know, the characters and all the crazy crap that goes on.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is just about, like, hey, look, we're the Endless, but we still, like...
Yeah. We have a responsibility.
We have a responsibility. We have certain confines, like, to one another, especially.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you, Desire. But, I mean, and then you even see in terms of, like, the dreaming itself, there are certainly rules.
Yeah.
Almost as
In
though...
a place that's so fantastic, there's still rules.
Because within the story, Gaiman is, like, he has his own set of rules that he has to follow, and he's just like, but you need rules to run things a certain way. It's very, like, it's meta in a way.
Yeah,
To some degree it is. But yeah, an incredible world created by an incredible world builder.
Yeah.
Neil Gaiman, I think, is one of those guys that, like, different approach to, like, from a Tolkien, certainly.
Yeah.
Because he does go into detail, but a lot of it he just leaves to, like, you're just gonna accept it.
Yeah.
And
it's fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely think that oftentimes,
I do kind of maybe could see it being a little overwhelming for like some people.
well, Gaiman, the need for acceptance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you just have to, like, believe and, like, you know, just whatever, and, like, who cares?
Yeah.
But I do think for some world builders in some worlds and universes themselves, there has to be a trust between the writer or the creator and their audience that they will just get it, and between the audience and the creator that it will make sense.
Yeah. Well, you were right with like them with Gaiman following like rules that he set for himself. That like, yeah, you kind of break that trust if through this whole time you're like, these are the rules, these are how things go, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, yeah, and you just throw it out the window. It's like, yeah, you kind of
I mean,
break
he
that
could have
trust.
easily broken the rules right at the end to change that ending.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he didn't,
Nope.
you know? So,
Yeah.
In line with another incredible world builder at times and talking about comics, I feel like I'd be remiss not mentioning the world of Watchmen.
Oh, yeah.
Because Alan Moore, in his scripting alone, crafted a grim, gritty world that you see in the panels. And I'm like, certainly you could look at the films, but honestly, I would even just looking at the comic and the thing you should be reading. You gotta at least check it out if you haven't, which I'm sure we all have. Alan Moore's Watchmen exists in the confines of taking the superhero genre and like changing it and subverting it and giving a grim, gritty look at that world in which superheroes exist, where you definitely see. You see the whole political climate.
Yep.
You see how people react to having superheroes. You have, like, you know, a lot of different beliefs in said superheroes. You have different beliefs among the superheroes.
How it affects history.
Yeah,
Like going
exactly.
Through,
Exactly.
Brilliant.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a universe that can exist on its own, but is made all the better by knowing that there are other superhero books out there.
Yeah.
Now, of course, naturally, they have kind of combined more recently in Doomsday Clock, so you do get to see that interaction, at least between one of the characters. So, well, a couple of characters so far. But the Watchmen universe, place I don't want to go to because it's just so devoid of joy, is just so believable.
Oh yeah.
I mean, so believable into the fact that, like, again, could be too much detail, and I'm not the biggest fan of the pirate comics in between, but what a great world building moment for him, where he's just like, in a world where superheroes exist, what do you write comics about?
Yeah.
You write them about pirates.
Yep.
Because we don't have pirates right now,
Nope.
but we have superheroes, and we don't want to glorify them. Let's talk about pirates.
Yep.
That alone, I think, is an excellent example of, like, the skill and, like, care that Moore put into that book in particular. And a lot of the things he did, maybe not Youngblood. Moving on. Saga. I think it's an interesting world because it is a fully conceived world to the people creating it. It is a world that we are getting peeks at as we go along, and I think the cohesion is left to be revealed.
Yeah.
Because knowing that it's an ongoing series, I do love this world, but it's weirdly less about the world and more about the people existing in it. I mean, you definitely get the political climate.
Yeah.
Occasionally I feel like things are kind of tacked on here and there, but overall, you know, it is fantastic. And I just don't want to say with finality that it's like, what an incredible world. It's still going on.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
so who knows where it's going to go?
I just have a hard time saying that.
Yeah.
Just, have a hard time. just a little concerned about that. And the other one I just want to briefly mention because, again, I want to make sure we get to a couple more, is East of West. A Hickman book that combines a futuristic kind of world where it's like science fiction and like biblical characters such as the Horsemen of the Apocalypse.
Oh, interesting.
Like,
okay.
very interesting world.
Yeah.
A lot of love went into that.
Yeah.
A lot of love. So, just
Yeah.
want to point that out there.
Cool.
Okay. What else you got?
Well, I got one that I think you might enjoy discussing. Sabrina. The world and
I
Universe
guess. I don't know.
I mean, I like the idea of, kind of witchcraft, and them trying to, I mean, that's a good example of, like, rules of, like, a universe that kind of, like, have to be abided by, but also kind of pushed at the same time. And, like, growing up and, like, kind of choosing your own destiny, and, I mean, that's kind of more story-based, but, like, just the universe that they live in, I don't know if I necessarily want to live in it, but, I mean, I do like the kind of small-town vibe.
Yeah.
Which is kind of fun, but,
I don't know. I always feel like it wasn't fleshed out enough. So I don't know if that's one of my favorites, which is fine, because the point is that, like, there were so many, like, works of fiction and so many different, like, stories and worlds that you can enjoy. Yeah. There's something for everybody. Yeah. Everybody's got to love something. Yeah. I'm telling you right now. You better love it. You better love it. But yeah, I feel like, I'm sure you're talking about the Chilling Adventures and not the, earlier.
Oh yeah, no, I never read the comics, so like I'm just.
Well, that's also Chilling Adventures.
Okay.
But then there's other Sabrina comics, and then there's the other Sabrina show.
Right. I'm basically on the show. That's about it.
And then there's that Harrison Ford Sabrina movie, which has nothing to do with it.
Completely different Sabrina.
But yeah, I just don't know. I don't know how much I prefer. I think I like the characters in that more than I address the world building that they've developed.
Do you have like a witchy magic universe that you prefer?
No, the closest I came to was putting The Witcher on there, but I don't know enough about it. But I know, like, based on the game that I've played, there's a lot of lore into that.
Because I do have another one which might be better.
Oh, what's that?
Harry Potter.
I don't know about Harry Potter.
Yeah.
But good. Let's talk Harry Potter. I think that one could be a little divisive for people.
I think so too.
Because I feel sometimes like Rowling relied on too much random crap that wasn't thought out. Not that I don't enjoy Harry Potter.
Yeah.
I just don't know how much of it is as
fully fleshed out
as it should be, as much as things were reactive at times. But go ahead.
Yeah.
I want to hear what you have to say.
I mean, I think she put in a lot of work with like building like a system and kind of having it the world of like witchcraft and wizardry, interacting with like the Muggle world or the normal world that we know it, and, like, that kind of thing, and just kind of her world building with like, what would a school for witches and wizards be like? What political stuff do they deal with? They kind of like touched into that a little bit. Maybe not as... I mean, that one's kind of hard because you do have this driving story of, like, a very good versus evil kind of thing, kind of running it along.
Yeah.
So you really kind of don't get to feel the world too much.
Right. I think, again, this is an example of where the films did a better job of distilling her stories, because I think her stories probably, for some people just looking at it in terms of world, it's just too much.
Oh, yeah.
It's just too all over the place at times. And the fact that she keeps adding things to it really puts me on the other side of the fence. I'm like, you have to stop. It's already written. You're done.
Yeah. If you want to write another book.
Yeah,
just do that.
Stop, and I'm like, we've all made fun of this, but like, stop telling us that wizards, like, pre-plumbing just crapped on the floor.
Yeah, that's kind of a Tolkien level of detail that I did not need to know about.
Just stop. I just don't need that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in terms of, like, if you're talking about, like, adding that, like, the political stuff, yes. I feel like, though, she does a better job of establishing the wizard world's reaction to muggles than the other way around.
Yeah.
And again, I guess because you don't see it very often, but like there would be times, and so I don't know. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. I struggle with finding a magical world that really
works.
That works well for me.
It's tough
because it's like technically you look at like someone like Doctor Strange, and like the world often does react to that. It's hard to give credit for Marvel and DC.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there are original creators, but so much has gone into it at this point that it's just like so much has changed. There's so many different versions of things. They are incredible universes.
Yes.
And when everyone's working together and playing together nicely, those universes, I think, are vast and deep. I mean, naturally, you need to look at people like, Jack Kirby for his creations. Let's just like look at literally the two halves of like basically the same coin in terms of Marvel and DC, looking at the New Gods and the Eternals. Very similar concepts, two different places. Just the idea of like, I want to make these like godlike characters, and I'm going to give them civilization, I'm going to give them like strife, and I'm going to give them like this, that, and the other thing, and like here it is. So like, I guess in a way we can say, DC, Marvel, obviously, guys, all right, DC, Marvel, yes, Incredible Worlds, Batman, Spider-Man, the whole thing, but it's like, obviously.
Do you think it's harder to find a good mix of, like, magic or fantasy when it mixes with, like, modern, not even modern, but, like, normal, sort of non-magical stuff?
No, I think it's easier then.
Yeah?
I think that's some of the best stuff. Like, I'm telling you, like, Magic Order did such a good job of dealing with that because, again, like, they didn't show it, like, they didn't happen too much in the real world, and when it did, it affected the real universe, or the real world itself. Doctor Strange does certainly affect the real world to some degree.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not out there to, like, like, ta-da!
Yeah.
But sometimes he is, and people always mistake it for, like, just being a superhero.
Right.
Which I think is cool.
Yeah.
Which I think is cool.
And that's something that it works, yeah.
Let's see. All right, I really have one more.
Okay.
You got anything else you need to?
That I absolutely need.
Have to. I'm looking at your list now.
Yeah, check out my list.
I'm looking at your list. Are we talking about Final Fantasy?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. No, I think that's...
Yeah. I mean, I thought that was but that kind of...
Yeah, Firefly is basically Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah. Like, they kind of serve the same
absolutely.
thing, which,
absolutely.
really works.
I'm going to break all of my, like, things that I basically said by saying this one, because it's probably not the best world building, but there's something about it I love. The original trilogy in Star Wars. I'm going to very specifically say that.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't want to hear it, everybody, about the new trilogies. I don't want to hear about the prequels.
Let's just focus on that.
Just want to focus on the original trilogy. And while we're talking about star-based things, shout out to Star Trek.
Oh yeah.
Also creating an incredible universe. Star Wars: The Original Trilogy does the thing I love by putting you in the middle of a story. All this other crap has happened, and we can really get it by the things that are happening in this film. Or in these films. I get it. I got it. I know what's happening.
Yeah.
There were Jedi. There aren't anymore. Like, these people live under, like, the, like, iron thumb of, like, the Empire.
Yeah.
For me, it's, like, really encapsulated by something really mundane that now has been explained, but I didn't need it to at the time. Certainly, the expanded universe, I think, also touched on it when that was a thing. However, when Han is talking about the Kessel Run.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to know what the Kessel Run is.
Yeah.
I already figured it out in my head.
Yeah.
Oh, it's some sort of race.
He's
or
boasting.
something like that.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a fast ship.
Fast ship.
Yeah. No, that sucked. But you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's like
No.
a world building moment that was just like, there are these crazy things that happen.
Yeah.
And he's going to refer to it. I'm not going to tell you about it.
Yep.
I don't need to tell you about it. Moving on.
Yep.
There's so many instances in those universes where they mention things, whatever. We put them in the Bacta tank. I see the Bacta tank. I've already put it's some sort of healing goo.
Yeah.
Got it.
I don't need to
Cool.
know any more of that.
What is Bacta? No
Ugh.
one has to say what is Bacta.
No.
I figured it out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. You could theorize. That's fine.
Yeah.
You know.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Moving on.
No, you need to know the exact makeup of.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
the the worlds that they live in, sure. They're probably too one-dimensional. An entire planet that seems to be sand. It's a little ridiculous.
Maybe it's really close to a star. I don't know. Screw it.
Right? I guess.
It doesn't matter.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I get that some people can struggle with that.
Yeah.
I know this really flies in the face of a lot of what I said. But in terms of like some of my like favorite fictional universes and
Yeah.
worlds, it's one of those that like nostalgia will always get the better of me. You know, that was one of the first worlds that captured my imagination.
Yeah.
As a little wee Tiffany. Little wee Tiffany was like, ha! Thank you.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Yep.
I do feel as though the more explanation we get, the less I am
You're loving it. Yeah.
infatuated
Yeah.
as I once was. There was
Yeah.
something to the unknown of that world building, which is, again, like, flies in the face of someone like Tolkien.
Yeah.
Where to a lot of people there is something magical about his historical accounts.
Yeah.
The detail that went into it.
And knowing what happened in the past.
Yeah,
and
it's the
yeah.
complete opposite in terms of what I want. And what I wanted was to imagine
Yeah.
what happened. I wanted to imagine like what like the Jedi were prior to that. I wanted to imagine what the Kessel Run was. Like
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I wanted to like I didn't ever necessarily need to see Coruscant.
No.
Coruscant, whatever.
Yeah.
Like there it was.
Yep.
It's mentioned in some of the expanded universe, but they do talk about it a lot, of course. To be fair, I do love Shadows of the Empire, where they definitely describe it in there.
Yeah.
But sometimes I feel like in certain instances, I'm trying to really phrase this appropriately,
Yeah.
too many details destroys a world,
Yes.
which seems so counter.
I know. Yeah.
It seems so counter.
It really does.
Yeah.
I guess it just depends on the details.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think you're right. I
Yeah.
think you're right. Like it's where you're putting your attention.
Yeah.
It's putting details in that can tell a story without necessarily having to tell the story sometimes. That
like
can
a show
really
not
do
tell
it.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
I guess.
And I think that in terms of the media that it's in makes a difference as well.
Yeah.
It's difficult necessarily to do that in a book. I
Yeah.
think at times without kind of mentioning something more about it. When you have a film, when you have a comic, when you have a video game,
Yeah.
you get that opportunity, I think, to show, not tell,
Yeah.
as you
Well,
said.
look at like Dead Space.
Yeah.
It's perfect for a game. I couldn't imagine it being like a show.
No, but it is a comic.
Oh, okay.
There
you
is
go.
a comic as
Yeah.
well, and it's just as horrifying. But again, it tells
Yeah.
you a lot about it.
Yeah.
But
Do
yeah,
you need it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's not, again, like the Star Wars thing for a lot of people causes a lot of passion. And so I don't want you to walk away from this thinking I'm saying that the world building you may enjoy isn't good.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying, for me, I didn't want it.
Yeah.
You know, it just wasn't something I was looking for personally.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you're wrong. That doesn't mean I'm wrong. It's just, it's not doing it for me.
Nope. That's like my thing with The Hobbit is like,
It didn't do it for you.
well, that one's kind of tough because there was a lot of padding involved.
Yeah.
But that's
In the
that's a whole
movies,
nother thing.
especially.
Yeah. Let's take like this little tiny story and stretch it out between 3 movies, whatever, in like a couple of months. But like, there was a lot of stuff in there that I didn't really need. It didn't even the parts that were verbatim for the story.
Yeah.
Were built upon in a way that just didn't need to happen.
Right. Yeah. No,
you know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yep.
So I guess that's kind of it for our lists. I know we kind of talked actually about world building as a whole as we go, as we went along.
Yeah.
But, you know, in terms of, like, the RPG, which I'm going to try to tie this back into Horror Patrol.
Hey!
Our,
Yes.
The RPG that was just launched on ComicPOP in terms of world building. I got to play in a sandbox, which was nice. It was a sandbox that already existed. A lot of times in RPGs, you get that opportunity. The devil is in the details in both ways, shape, or form. Some of it is easy to give those descriptors.
Yeah.
Some
How
of
do
it,
you, yeah, how do you...
some of it I don't feel like I don't need to.
Yeah.
I established in Horror Patrol that's a small town. I can give you every minute detail, tell you the color of every single house.
Yeah.
That's just not the way I want to tell a story.
Yeah, I'm already getting visuals without having to...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I have no problem with letting people put their own impression, like in their imagination as to what it looks like. You know what I mean? Like, we live in Jersey. I know what a lot of shore towns look like.
Yeah.
But you may not. You might have a different idea of shore towns. Yeah. So, you know, I'm going to let you imagine what you want. As we go along in other things, I will probably end up giving more detail. But I feel like if you're going to be telling an RPG story, you do need to have that detail ready. You got to have it in your pocket.
Well, yeah, because at any point in time, someone could be like, well, what is this about?
Yeah,
and,
what does this look like? Explain
Yeah.
it to me. Like, you know, whatever.
Or like a character. Like, give me some more detail about this person.
Right. But I think it also, you have to consider your players, your audience, which I think anyone writing a story, anyone writing a comic, anyone working on writing a video game or like a treatment for a show or a movie, I think you have to consider who it's for and consider, do they want all of that?
Yeah.
Necessarily. If you're trying to get the Game of Thrones fans, they're going to want some details.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you're just trying to, you know, do like an action, whatever sort of thing, you probably need less detail. People are going to be more focused on the story and the action than they are on the world.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It's your own preference. There are some things that people will say you should never do.
Okay.
You know, like not following your own rules, not being able to explain certain basic things. If you're telling a big, long, huge story and you can't tell people where they get their food from, like especially in an apocalyptic story, you gotta have that kind of stuff ready to go, even if you only know it. Your characters may not know every detail, and that's okay.
Yeah, because it could affect the story in its own way without blatantly, you know.
Yeah, especially if you're doing like a comic too. You need to be able to tell the artist certain like details.
Yeah.
And if the artist knows a lot about the world, then they'll be able to put things in the panels, in the backgrounds. Like there's certain things you may want to see in there.
Yeah.
You don't want to make a big show of it, but it's there.
No.
So there's a lot to world building. There's
I
a
think
lot.
we could probably have
Another one.
show and just
Sal will just do it. He'll just take it. And these are just some of our favorite fictional worlds and universes. As we were going along, I just kept thinking of more.
Yeah.
Because there's just so many. And you guys definitely helped us out with a lot of your opinions, your thoughts, your ideas. We loved hearing them. I'll do one more super chat from Adam Asamoah saying, for anime, I have JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So good that they rebooted it.
Wow.
For video games, I have God of War, and for comics, I have Marvel's Ultimate Universe.
War.
God of War is interesting because it takes an established mythology, you know, something completely potentially unrealistic.
And plays with it.
Don't strike me down, Zeus. We're having a storm outside. Because he's a dick.
Apparently.
And like kind of turns it on its ear and then proceeds to take it and put it into another pantheon, which is just incredible.
Yeah.
It follows its own rules, though.
Yeah.
100%.
Yep.
So
It sticks to them. Which
Yeah.
is good.
And again, because it's a visual media, like in terms of video games, being able to explore, able to do a lot of these show don't tell.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to live there either.
No.
Just don't.
No.
In terms of the Ultimate Universe, that's an interesting pull as well, because it's like the idea of the multiverse, of course, and like taking the characters you know and love and putting them into this pocket universe and retelling their stories in totally different ways.
Oh, okay.
And some of it being very successful and some of it being less successful.
But it gives you a place to kind of play around with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, the most successful being Ultimate Spider-Man. And I have to agree on that one. It is a beautiful story of Peter Parker, one that hits a lot of notes. It's like, I recognize this from main Spider-Man, while also giving you something completely different.
Cool.
And honestly, a beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah.
for it. And then we get miles out of it for some people who love and for some people who don't. Depends on who you're talking to. But yeah, I definitely have to agree. The Ultimate Universe is a really cool place to be. Ironically created by Bendis, who is not everybody's favorite anything right now.
Yeah.
So, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
But yeah, so maybe we'll do this again in the future. When you're seeing this later on in a repeat or whatever, and you're watching this on the channel, feel free in the comments down below to let us know what some of your favorites are.
Yeah.
Give us a heads up. What are you digging on? And what makes a good world or universe for you?
Yes.
Because like I said, for a lot of people, I think there'll be a lot of crossover, but for some people, there's going to be things that drive them crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And some things that don't. Like for me, again, I'm not hyper detailed.
Yeah.
Too much detail. I'm like, okay, yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Where's the story?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But some people, they just love that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a little thing for everybody. But thank you so much for hanging out with us and for being generally awesome and being cool with the fact that Sal was... I mean, look, cool or not, Sal wasn't here. Sorry.
We're going to say it's cool.
I didn't know where that was going, so here it is. But yeah, thank you guys so much for hanging out. Don't forget, if you want to help support the channel, head on over to patreon.com/ComicPOP to check out the different tiers there. Learn about all the different things you can get over there, like early access to a lot of our shows. Mystery box things that we do.
Boxes.
Ooh, who doesn't want a box?
I love boxes.
And it's filled with things.
Oh, that's even better.
I know. Maybe we'll get Ben to lick them from now on. Just lick the inside of it, Ben. Ooh. Did you get a Ben licked one? I don't know.
Who knows?
We're not going to do that. I think that's a real problem.
That probably is.
I feel like some government organization is gonna come after us if we do that. We also do some streaming over on the Purple channel, which may or may not happen tonight because we're doing this. I don't know what's happening with that. I don't know.
Maybe.
We'll see. I don't know. So get me wrong.
No promises, but
And don't forget to head over to our channel after you're all done and watch Harbor Patrol if you haven't already.
watch it. It's awesome.
It's a lot of fun.
It's really
if you're not into RPGs, maybe this will get you into it.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll never be into them ever again after this. You'll find out on your own.
Yeah.
I can't tell you because I liked it. But yeah, that's all I got. You got anything? Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. I'm Tiffany.
I'm Danielle.
Bye. Bye.